Good evening. I would like to call the regular Board of Education meeting on Monday, May 7th to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Kelly.
Ms. Flynn? Stewart?
Oh, I'm here, sorry.
Ms. Patchen? Here. Mr. Rutkowski?
Here.
Mr. Singh?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Delayed, I'm going to say.
Mrs. Zopp?
Here.
Mrs. Gadsden?
Excused.
Mr. White?
Here. All right, fire exits, Matt.
Exits are at the back of the LGA.
All right, and our workshop tonight is the public hearing on the proposed budget for the 18-19 school year, and we have Dr. Landau and Anne Marie.
All right, we're just going to provide an overview. I'll do the budget highlights at the beginning, and Marie will fill in some of the financial information, and then we'll take questions. So just what's new in the budget this year? I know we've been over this a lot at many board meetings, but we are adding 3 elementary teachers to do further class size reductions, one at South Avenue, one at Glenham, one at Sargent. We are adding 2 elementary PE teachers to move to a 4-day specials rotation. In the 4 days, we'll have 2 all elementary students will have 2 PE, 1 art, 1 music. Library media will also be a once a week, if not more, but it'll be outside of that rotation. We're adding a special education teacher. I want to note about that position that we're still determining, what exactly the position is. We're looking at IEPs. We're looking at students leaving us, students coming in. This still could be a certified occupational therapist assistant, or it might be a special education teacher. We're still evaluating that. Security upgrades. The main security upgrade is we are proposing to have a director of security next year. It'll be a civil service position. This position will help with a few things. It will help with training all of our staff. It'll help with the development and implementation of our building emergency response plans and our district emergency response plans. And the person will be a liaison with Beacon Police Department, Town of Fishkill Police, and also Fire Department, Emergency Services, etc. And then last but not least, this is really exciting. We have technology as a part of this budget. The one-to-one initiative at Roundabout Middle School, which started a couple of weeks ago to much success, will be expanded across the entire middle school. So we'll have 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders all receiving a Chromebook at not the first day of school, but at the beginning of the school year next year, with the plan being the one-to-one initiative will be going to Beacon High School the year after. And we're also adding interactive whiteboards at the middle and high school. We're projecting about 60 of these, so we're saying right now 30 at Roundabout, 30 at the high school, give or take. But this is a huge need. Teachers have really talked about this a lot at our technology committee and other forums, that if we're moving to a one-to-one environment, it's really important for teachers to have a screen where they're projecting and being able to do instructional plans with, so kids can see and not just be looking at their screen, but they can see what their teacher's doing in a projected way. So that's something that we are putting in this budget as well. Just to remind folks what went into this budget development, lots of things. We had I hosted 8 budget forums, 6 with PTAs, 2 with teachers, where we probably had across those 8 forums for sure over 100 people attend, and those were just kind of freewheeling discussions about things people wanted to see in the budget. We also did a budget survey that asked folks about specific things they wanted to see in this budget or future budgets, and we had over 200 people respond to that survey. So I think what's important to note is this is just our first step. With all of that feedback, we see future budgets for the 1920 school year, 2021 school year to implement some of the other things that we want to see in the district, namely second world language, expanded career and tech options for students, more electives at the high school, and also moving instrumental music down, hopefully, to 4th grade. So we may not be able to accomplish every single one of those in next year's budget, but we're going to try to get as many of those in as we can. economy and budget willing. So with that, so we can do it in a strategic manner, this summer we'll start a strategic planning process, both with the board and the community, taking a lot of this feedback that we've collected this year to put together a plan, obviously with board approval, that helps move the district forward in a really comprehensive way. So I think this process this year has been a great start for me as a new superintendent, but also a budget that really addresses some needs in the district. We've been talking with PTOs about the budget, about what's in it, like we're doing tonight. We have 2 more PTO meetings this week. We have Forest Stoll PTO tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And we have Sergeant's PTO on Thursday at 4 o'clock as well. We saw Rombout Middle School last week and South Avenue last week, which was on the playground, which was cool to do a little talk outside. And we did Glenham's last week as well. So we've gotten great feedback from the community about the budget when we've gone out to meet with them. And so, we feel good about what's going forward. It doesn't, accomplish everything we want to do, but over the next few years of, further positive budget development, we think we can really address a lot of those items. So that's what's new. A lot of people gave input. We think this is a comprehensive plan for this year and beyond. And Anne Marie's going to talk about the fiscal part.
Okay, thank you. So this slide just details our tax cap calculation, and again, we have talked about this in the past, but it's more of a plus and minus kind of situation. The allowable growth factor at 1.02 or 2%, which has been the highest it's been, and that's tied to the consumer price index that's dictated by the state. There's also a portion tax-based growth. So the second line. That allowed our levy to increase, and that was an adjustment of the tax-based growth, which is a reflection of Beacon and the number of properties that are being increased in the city of Beacon. So it did allow us to let the levy grow, which we were extremely happy about, which allowed us to be at 3.67%, which is higher than it has been, but it was able to give us some flexibility to add the positions that we wanted in the budget. So again, the factors that increased the tax cap, that tax-based growth factor was $573,000 of an increase all by itself. And then the allowable growth factor, again, at 2%, which was higher than it was last year. When they talk about the tax cap, they say the 2% cap, but in essence, it's really tied to the consumer price index. So it's been lower in previous years, so we're happy that it's at the max now at 2%. Some major factors that increased the budget. We did have an increase in the teachers' retirement contributions this year, and that is mainly where most of our payroll is. So that was an additional expense that we had in the budget. Then increases to our salaries and benefits, including health insurance. And to just give you an idea, that salary and benefits are approximately 74% of our total budget. We are a people business, so that's to be expected to have salaries and benefits reflect most of the budget. So I'm going to present the 3 parts of the budget through the New York State Education Department. We have to present it that way. The numbers information are on PowerPoint, but also you'll be getting a newsletter within the next day or 2 that has a lot more detail in it, and it also presents it this way as well. So it breaks it up into administrative, instructional, and capital. Administrative is the administrative portion. So it's the building level administrators, it's central administration, it's the clerical staff that works for them, it's the office expenditures in that area, and the benefits related to that. So it kind of gives you a full picture. Same thing with instructional. Instructional is all of the teachers, the school psychologists, the speech pathologists, all of the materials and supplies in the building level, and then the salary and benefits that also relate to that section of the budget. And then capital is our facilities and operations area. So their salaries and benefits also would be included in the capital portion. So the overall percentage on the budget is 2.76%. That's what the budget was raised from last year to this year. And I'm sorry, this is small. There's a lot of information in there. This is more of the revenue side. How do you pay for the budget? And again, you see the 2.76% at the bottom. We are planning to use another $250,000 again of tax reduction reserve. We only have one more year after this because we've used all of it already. That reserve was set up again on the sale of Old Beacon High School, and it's only allowed to be used to reduce the levy. So we've been systematically doing that. 2.5 million of use of reserves and fund balance. So our fund balance was a little bit higher than the state would like, but our auditors were okay and happy with that too. So we're trying to maintain some of the expenditures in the current year budget with the fund balance to try to maintain, so we can keep the levy at the tax cap. And then the increase in state aid did help us. It was $453,000 from last year, so that also assisted in us paying for the budget. We are also next Tuesday, besides the budget, we are going to have a bus proposition, and Mr. Mackey explained it in his PowerPoint presentation to the board, which for anybody who's listening or in the audience, that is also online. So if you wanted to get a little bit more detail. We're asking for 2 72-passenger buses and 3 20-passenger vans. The total would be $380,720. But as you know, we do not raise the levy by the full amount of the bus proposition. We kind of spread it out over 5 years, because that's how the state aid is calculated. So our transportation state aid ratio is 59.1%, which means that we get back 59 cents on every dollar that we spend for buses. So we try to minimize the amount that we increase the levy. That's why we spread it out over 5 years. I always think this slide's important just to kind of go over what the role of the transportation department is, because we always think about a school bus showing up and taking children to school, which is its main function. But it also does all of our sports programs. We have a school to work program at the high school. Our child care program, so we do bus to daycare before and after. We pick up before and then drop after school. We have IRP, which is our elementary IRP section. We do bus the children home after that. Tutoring and special services, so for some reason a student is on home instruction and they come to school midday, we also provide transportation for them to get to and from school. Field trips, 504 medical requests, and displaced students under McKinney-Vento. And the TO went under the bus somehow. So just to give you an idea on a tax estimate, and we've used median assessed values from the 3 municipalities. So if your house is worth an assessed value of about $290,500 with our basic star, your increase for the budget would be $160 for a year. With the bus proposition together, it would be $168 for the year, or it's about $14 a month. For Fishkill, with their median assessed value with basic star, the budget increase would be about $199 a year, $209 with the bus proposition, which comes out to about $1742 per month. And Wappingers, median house would be a budget increase of $197. With the bus proposition, it's $203, and about a little less than $17 a month. Now, I do want to say, and we had mentioned this in a previous board meeting, those are using the assessments from last year. And on the postcard, on the back portion, you'll also see those same numbers. I will say that we are anticipating a change in assessment. These were the change in assessments for 2017. When the change in assessment values and properties coming onto the tax rolls actually minimize the impact of a tax increase. We don't have that information right now. We don't get it until July because we do the tax warrant and the board votes on it at the end of August. We anticipate that those numbers that I just shared with you will be significantly less, but it's hard to quantify. So as an accountant, I'm going to give you the worst case scenario, and then we could always go better from there. So that's what we're anticipating. We did see an increase in Wappingers and also in the homestead for Fishkill, but the significant increase was in the city of Beacon. So we anticipate the same for this coming year. Contingency budget. So the law changed a few years ago. There will be absolutely no increase in the tax levy. So whatever the tax levy was last year will be the tax levy for this year if the budget is defeated, actually 2 times. That means for this budget, it would mean cutting $1.3 million out of the budget that we're putting to the voters, which is pretty significant. It would mean definitely all the things on the first slide we couldn't manage to do, and there'd be other things we'd have to look at. I'm hoping that, we don't get to that point, but I'm responsible for kind of telling you what that would be if that happened. So when you look at a contingency budget, these are not things that would automatically happen, but these are things that the board would have to consider. Some of the things we would have to do, we would have to cut non-mandatory equipment purchases. Those automatically come out of the budget. We would have to charge full cost for facility use of non-school organizations. So right now, we have an agreement, for example, with the City of Beacon. So we use their fields, they use our buildings, they use our fields, and there's no charge either way. We don't charge for Beacon Soccer to use our fields. All of those, there's not-for-profits use our buildings. They only pay personnel costs, but there's no rental. So that would be a significant change. We must charge full cost if we're in a contingency budget. So that would be a lot more complicated, and the buildings would be used less by our community members. We'd have to reduce or eliminate school-related building use after hours, because that has a personnel cost involved in it. Again, these are things that you don't ever want to have to do, but these are areas that you have to look at. Cuts to athletics, clubs, and student activities at all levels. And we've been really good about trying to maintain and increase in those areas over the last few years. Again, you have to look at non-core classes, art, music, and electives, and it's counterproductive because those are the areas that we're really trying to work on. Legally, you could cap the class size to 35, which is something that no one wants to do. So. And again, we want to remind you, our budget vote is a week from tomorrow, so it's May 15th. It's from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And if you are a City of Beacon resident, you vote here in the gym at Beacon High School. And if you live in Fishkill and Wappingers, you vote at Glenham Elementary School. Does anyone on the board have any questions? Yes.
A couple of people asked me, they recently, like within the last week, got changes to their assessment in Beacon. They went up, and I got one as well, so I'm assuming it's probably one of those blanket reassessment across everybody's properties. So I'm assuming that the new total value of the assessed properties in Beacon that you'll be getting later in the summer will reflect all of those changes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because they asked me, how does this impact my taxes?
If everybody went up incrementally the same amount, there would be no
There would
effect.
be no increase at all, right?
But we already know when having conversations with the City of Beacon that we do know that there are properties that will come online
New
that were
parcels- new
in.
parcels
There'll be
reduce it for everyone.
exactly.
Right.
So those are kind of mitigate some of the assessed value increases. Yes.
I received a question about whether the breakdown of the explanations of all the budget hearings we've been having, budget presentations we've been having. I remember, I do note that we do have 2 PDFs on budget online, but I remember one year we also posted the presentations.
Well, they're all on there. In the Board of Education area on the website.
On the budget link.
All right, maybe if you could.
So I think the PDF that you're talking about that you're seeing now is the budget book, Part 1, Part 2.
Yeah.
So that's the list of all the budget codes, the descriptions, the school report card. That's all the mandatory requirements that we must post. But we put on all of the PowerPoints all along, including the ones that Matt and I have done previous to that.
Okay. All right, I'll look for them.
Okay, I can look as soon as I sit
Yeah.
down and tell you where it is.
Yeah, sorry, I've worked with them.
Okay.
I've seen them.
So in the past couple of years, I've been getting a tax rebate check because we've been in the cap. Is that still going to apply this year?
As far as we know, yes, they're continuing that. So that's been around $125.
And that's
So
because we're staying at or below the levy?
yes, there's a form that we need to fill to comply to make sure. So we have to stay at the cap for you to receive the check back
So the
from the
increase
state.
are basically almost washed out by that tax rebate check?
Yes.
Great.
For the physical education positions we're adding, so that'll make us in compliance with the state regulations for the minutes of PE hours?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then the security director, one of the things, they'll ensure consistency across the district, which we didn't necessarily have before, but you'll remain the ultimate accountability for those.
Yeah,
security plans?
there's a designation in the state called Chief Emergency Officer for every district. I'll still be that person because obviously I make the ultimate decision whether we're closing or if there's some sort of district-wide emergency issue. But that director would be a direct report to me and would be working closely with me.
One last question. Is this presentation online as well?
It
Because
will
it's,
be. We just
difficult
made some
to-
last minute changes. I'll
Okay.
put it on now. In fact, I can email it to you from my computer and then we'll post it tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Good, yeah, thank you.
So since it's a hearing, does anyone in the audience have any questions that they want to ask? Okay. If you change your mind, you can reach out to us and we'd be more than happy to answer them, okay? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I need a motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of particular individuals and to seek legal advice from the school attorney. Attorney-client privilege, the board is expected to return at probably about, what? About 8:15, I would say. I just did get a text from our attorney that they're stuck in traffic. On my way over here, there was an accident on the bridge on 84, which was making a backup on 9D as well as for Plank as I was coming down this way. So he may be a little late, just a little FYI.
52.
And 52.
So moved.
Kristen, is there a second?
Second.
Anthony, comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 8-0. Alrighty, so we do have an adjustment to the agenda. I would like the board to go on adding an addendum 11.04F, so it would be added on to the non-instructional 11.04. We're adding number F, and it's a resignation of a custodial worker, and it would be effective 5/4/18. This person's name is Derek Tranberg. Do I have a motion to add the addendum?
Second.
Bill. Kristen, comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 8-0. So as we are voting, just realize that is on as the non-instructional, so it's 11.04F. We have no other adjustments to the agenda, so we'll move right into the student or school presentations. Seeing none, we're going to go to parent groups.
Hi, my name is Juliet Harvey, and I'm here for the PTO Collab. I just want to let you know of some events that are coming up. Tomorrow night, May 8th, is a Meet the Candidates night here at the Beacon Auditorium. And on May the 11th, we have a 5th grade ice cream social. This is the first time that this event is happening. It's going to be happening at Roundabout Middle School, and it's for all the 5th graders from all elementary schools to come together at the middle school for some ice cream, some games. And also on June 24th, we've organized a Beacon's baseball night out at the Renegades for the entire school district. We're going to be sending home little codes, so depending on what school you're from, your kids can buy tickets to the game. And then the elementary school chorus is going to be able to participate at the 7th inning stretch to sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
Awesome. What time was the May 8th?
Tomorrow, May 8th, is 7 p.m.
Thank you.
7
The
p.m.
24th is the baseball.
24th is a baseball. That's a Sunday night, so it's right after the end of the school year. It'll be Sunday nights, a 5 o'clock game. There'll be information sent out. We're kind of waiting until closer to June to send out for specific codes. But also May the 11th, this Friday night, is the 5th grade ice cream social. We sent forms home, but if anybody hasn't turned it in, you can still let us know if 5th graders can come.
Great, thank you very much. Any other parent groups? Seeing none, open to the public. No one signed up on the book. Is there anybody that would like to comment? Seeing none, we're going to move right into the superintendent's report. Dr. Landau.
It's pretty quick tonight. I just want to let everyone know that our staff diversity data is updated and it's on the website. If you go to the About Us section and you scroll down, what do you scroll down to? You scroll down to just staff and student demographics, I think.
Bottom tab.
And if you click on staff demographics, you'll see two reports. One is our data from last year. One is our data from this current school year. In the past, it was sort of a pie graph, and so we just are going with the real numbers this year. So that includes numbers of all of our staff, but it's broken down in lots of different ways. So one of the ways you can look at it is instructional staff diversity. So that's one that we certainly are taking a look at. Just want to remind everyone that we are in the middle of hiring processes for both teachers and administrators. And for the teachers, I mentioned this the last time, but I think it bears repeating. We do have these elementary openings that we posted and are starting to look at. We had over 500 applicants. This year, Celia, with the elementary principal team, looked at every single applicant. Obviously, the number one goal is finding the best people for our classrooms, but we also have another goal of increasing diversity, staff diversity in the district, so that is certainly something we're looking for, both the background of the candidate, but also their willingness and experience in working in diverse environments like Beacon. So there's a lot of effort being put into that, a lot of renewed effort, and we are excited to see the results from that process as it unfolds over the next month or so. The same process is taking place with our principal openings and our director of technology openings too. So we will be starting the first round of committee interviews with our principals for Forestville and Beacon High School, our principal candidates, I should say, this week. And so, again, we have great high-quality pools and diverse pools for those two positions, and we're really excited to be moving forward with that too. So just a reminder, that data has been discussed a little bit at board meetings. The new data is up on the website, and I invite you to check it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports, including board comments. We're going to start with Enning and Noah. Sorry. Kept the E at the end.
First, I want to congratulate Elizabeth Senecola. She is a chorus singer. She was Cinderella in Beacon Players, and then Mary in the recent Jesus Christ Superstar. She scored a 97 at NYSSBA this past, which is very close to perfect. So she made all chorus counting, and she'll be moving on to the next round. And then for sports, our boys Aston Mar, which is sprint medley relay team, made it to nationals this past Friday from Somers, so they'll be heading down to North Carolina in June to compete. And then on the flip side, there's a family in Forestville School District. The boy's named Colton. He's going through muscular dystrophy right now, and I've been reached out to help form some fundraisers for the family. So we're still working on a date for a roundabout dodgeball tournament. I just got done talking with their PTO president on working on that. And then on June 7th at Forestville will be a spaghetti dinner for the family. I believe that's 6 to 8. And the GoFundMe was also set up. So that will be, all of that money will go to the family. That's all I have.
Thank you, Noah.
I just want to extend the congrats to Alexander Yulian and Madeline Wallace for also doing well at the NYSSBA solos. Alex actually had a perfect score, so 100 out of 100. And Madeline Corellis got 98 out of 100. So congrats to the Beacon Music Department. And I want to say congratulations to the track team for doing well at leagues. This is the first time the girls team has actually won leagues in since 2011. So congrats to them, and congrats to Jumi Akinwumi for clearing 5-3 and qualifying for states.
Awesome. Thank you. Georgia, policy. I'm going to start with you.
Okay. Our next policy committee meeting is on May 21st at 8:15 at the district office. Right? Yes. Okay. That's really all I had.
All right.
Because I wasn't at the very last policy committee meeting.
All right, thank you. Bill?
Sure. I attended the Dutchess County School Board Association meeting. The main topic of the evening was talking about student testing. This presentation put on by Dana Brown, who's the director of ELA and Special Social Studies curriculum at Arlington High School. She had a PowerPoint presentation, which when I get that in an electronic form, I will distribute to the board. Probably also give it to you, Cecilia, as well as Eric. Basically, it was what they're trying to do is like a lot of districts, they're struggling with the opt-out percentages and the fact that most people are, most of us are, have high enough percentages that it's above what the state prescribes as acceptable. And their PowerPoint presentation was something they give to parents at a meeting to explain to them how testing, standardized testing had been in the past and how it is now, because it's still evolving, standardized testing. So the facts that some of the parents may have now may be based on how standardized testing operated 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And so what their goal is, they're trying to get the opt-out percentage down by having meetings with the parents and groups of parents and trying to present how are they working now, and what are the rules, what are they used for, as a means of trying to increase the percentage of participation. So once I get that in electronic form, I will pass it out to everybody.
Great, thank you. Anthony?
Good evening. I want to say that about more than half a dozen high school students from the Beacon High School have been participating in the mentoring program for architecture, construction, and engineering, the ACE program. And their final presentations actually will be this Wednesday at the SUNY New Paltz. And unfortunately, it conflicts with my schedule, but it starts at 5 o'clock. And the Team Dutchess, which is where our students will be presenting, will start at 7:25. It's what they did was they took the parcel that the municipal building, City Beacon Municipal Building is at, and they proposed a new design. Some of them are very interesting. Some of them have towers and stuff like that. So I'm not going to spoil it too much. But I'm very proud of these students that just wanted to try out the architecture, construction, engineering that had interest, and it ranges from freshmen to seniors. So I don't know if they're willing to, but maybe perhaps since it involves both the city, Beacon, and the school, maybe have them come back and do another presentation maybe for both parties here. So. Our next diversity committee is also this Wednesday at 8:15. I'm hoping it'll be the last one before we break for the summer. I'm working on a recap of what we've done, what we've talked about so far. So that's to come on that. The May 25th is our Beacon High School Career Fair, and that's being headed by Michelle Balamis here. So I invite everybody who's here, who are listening to us here, including board members, if you have your careers you want to table, present to the students, please see Michelle on that. Lastly, at a Beacon Conservation Advisory Committee meeting, there was some discussion about whether we have either an environmental science after-school activity, like a student club or something like that, and I know also a discussion about the AP Environmental Science curriculum, which I don't think we have here. So I encourage them to just contact the school district and kind of start that conversation. What I didn't hear yet is whether we're doing the summer program with the Beacon Institute again, Beacon Institute Rivers and Estuaries. And that was a question I had.
I'm looking to Mr. Wright. We've been in conversation with Mr. Pact from Beacon Institute on a number of projects, that being one of them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Meredith?
The next curriculum committee meeting is May 16th at 2:30. And I also just wanted to make board members and other community members, families, aware of this Path to Promise focus group that's happening this week. County Executive Molinaro is sponsoring it. It happened this evening at Beacon Rec, and it's happening again in Beacon on Friday from 10 to noon. And he's looking for people to help create a vision for the assets that we currently have for youth, but also what is missing. So it's probably a pretty interesting conversation. It says you should register at duchessnewyork.gov/path, but I think you probably also just show up. And that's all.
Thank you. Kristen?
I left them on this committee before the meeting before any follow-up meeting was discussed, but I did have, so do you have a date?
Yeah.
Okay. So, we finally finished our policy, and I believe Dr. Landau got applause from the committee, which was a very gratifying moment. It was happy for all of us, actually. But one of the key things that we worked out within that needed to be worked out within the committee structure were outdoor recess, celebrations, and what was the third thing?
Physical education, physical activity.
Okay, right, yes, physical breaks. So I think the general consensus was that people are very excited about the increase in physical education, coming closer to compliance and having the 4-day schedule. We also discussed about reducing and coordinating the reduction of the permissible outdoor recess temperature, and that's going to be something that's managed through the principals. They're going to receive information about a weather site that they can access in the morning, and it'll be below 32 degrees. And I think we're looking at 26, but I don't know what the final number was. And foods and celebrations, and rewards. So we have some things that are being worked out within on the administrative side, and will be covered this summer. But the goal is to always provide healthy options, and then also give families access to providing healthy options either through the district if they wanted to bring something that was in compliance, or just one healthy option, for example, like a fruit or a vegetable snack at a celebration, but we're not ruining celebrations for everybody by turning it into some sort of dietary meeting for kids. So I think it's very reasonable, and it was a long process, and I know I've talked about this a lot here at the board, and I have to say it's definitely been worth kind of working through all the relevant stakeholders and the people who are going to we have to get buy-in from in order to actually make this something that's just not words on paper, but actually is something that we can start to apply immediately. And then we also need to have achievable goals that we can build upon, and that's only possible if we start in a reasonable place. So at the next meeting, which is
June 13th at 4 o'clock.
June 13th at 4 o'clock. We're very excited because I've talked to some members of the committee, and we're going to start planning for things that are coming in the fall that we've really been looking forward to doing, like things that happen in the beginning of the year are walk to school day, and really coordinating outreach and effort to sort of get everybody participating in that, and lots of other more fun initiatives that we're very excited to no longer be a quasi-policy committee. I stopped by the Pathways to Progress event. I found out about it very late, but I stopped by just to make sure that I got a card from somebody. They're going to do this thing at the library, like Meredith said, on Friday. I suggested that they coordinate with the district if they're looking for sort of broader representation and getting real access to information about what services we offer and what is available here, so that it will be more meaningful to them in their work and more representative of what's available here in Beacon.
Would you be able to come to the policy meeting for about 15, 20 minutes? So when we review the wellness, you could kind of give us the mindset as that.
I'll pop open some seltzer water. We can all celebrate.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And a healthy snack.
Craig?
Thank you. So, if I'm not mistaken, across town tonight, the city council is looking at the Edgewater project. And as it turns out, there was a lot of debate at the planning board and the zoning board. And at the end, it comes down to a special use permit. So it will be interesting to see what happens. I wish I could split myself and be in two places at one time. The record, of course, is that we did send an attorney in to talk at length and in somewhat of a mutually antagonistic situation at the planning board, as I recall, about the validity of numbers that developers tend to use when they estimate school district impact. And the more I've thought about this, the more I realize that it doesn't take even a huge development to have an impact. So if you think about a project being built, it's going to wind up in one of our 4 elementary school districts. And there are zones for those. So if you have let's say a second grade class in one of those districts that is already at what we consider to be the comfortable maximum, and then you have several families move into a given project, that one grade might just sort of pop over the limit where it now becomes an issue for us. Students will notice that, their parents tell us about it, and our staff works on this fairly often to try to keep things with a lid on them and a proper assortment of teachers versus the number of students. So class size is important. And this is a story that the developers don't really like to hear because it interferes with their plans and their hopes for profits, and size matters in that business. So I think we did a good thing, although it didn't appear to be a success at the time. I do believe that we made an impact, we made an issue, and people have thought about it. So we'll see how it goes, and it ain't over yet. On the Facilities and Operations Committee, I finally got to go on one of those turf field visits. This was at the Trinity Pauling School in Pauling, which is a private boys' school. They have a turf field that was installed 6 years ago. And Anthony D'Amato, our facilities director, and I were happy to have a visit with the director of facilities and the athletic director there. They're very pleased with the field. I was impressed that it's in good shape after 6 years, and they have not yet done one full-scale rehab, which you're supposed to do periodically to level out the fill and so on and keep it smooth. Looks great, and I was very encouraged. So we have, I think, one more at least in the hopper. Hopefully we'll get a chance to look at that one. And things are moving along, and I guess Mike will update us on the next meeting, etc.
Greg, what did you think of it without the track around it?
It works fine. In fact, it's interesting. I took a photo showing the natural grass right next to the artificial grass. You have to look twice before you realize where the one starts and the other ends. It looks good.
And the reason why I didn't go to that one is I'm familiar with it, and so the colors, it was nice because the colors are kind of similar to what we have here as well. The dark blue, their emblem.
Oh, yes, yeah. Except ours would be a bulldog.
Correct. Mike?
Okay, a few questions first. Where's the timeline on the Alteris report, and when we'll start getting briefings out on that?
What we've been planning to do is we were going to brief. We have the district emergency response team meeting in 2 weeks. We were going to brief them. We were actually preparing a similar presentation for the facilities committee. If you'll have us be on the agenda, because a bulk of the audit revolves around facilities. Seems like most of the behavioral stuff is being addressed through trainings that Alteris is already doing with each of our schools. So what we've been doing, we have a team, an internal team that meets weekly to go through the audit and sort of prioritize stuff. And so we wanted to take it to the district team and then the facilities team. Facilities meets the week after the district emergency response team. And what we're working on for the facilities committee is kind of like a prioritized, we can do this summer, you know, with your blessing, we can do, with the committee's blessing, we can do this next year. This part we're going to probably need to put in a capital project, or, you know, that sort of work. And so we wanted to do that at the facilities committee and then bring it probably to the June 4th board meeting.
Good, that'll work. All right, thank you. Question on the opt-out percentages. What's our accountability as a district as far as the high opt-out percentages go? And if so, what are the ramifications or penalties? You know, what's our responsibility in that?
Everything kind of, from my vantage point, seems a little bit vague still in terms of ramifications for opt-out. Individual schools can be identified and they could be included into a local assistance plan. Celia, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you can get a local assistance plan just for participation rate, but if you're already identified for other things, they can add in participation rate, is my understanding. So it's like it's a part of Sargent's, if you remember Sargent's local assistance plan, it was part of their plan.
Right.
So it's, we talked about it at the last Dutchess superintendent meeting. It's become, the area, I'll say, is sort of settling in around 15 to 20%, and that number seems like it's, at least this is just, area superintendents talking, but that number seems like it's sort of solidifying. Like a lot of those folks aren't moving from the opt-out to taking the test again. But beyond it being a part of local assistance plans for some schools, I haven't heard about any other ramifications. There's always those rumors about losing funding, but that's never really materialized. I also know there's something that's going through the Assembly and Senate with decoupling the test to teacher evaluations, and I don't know if that will play a part in some people choosing to participate back with the test if that does happen. It's something we try to encourage, but yet ultimately it's the parent decision. And it seems like kind of that's where we are with it.
All right, thank you. Like we mentioned, the facility committee meeting coming up is May 21st at 7 p.m. So, we've been, like Craig said, we've been visiting a number of different of the different turf fields. But we are also working with the architect. I think we're going to have the construction superintendent coming on board to start getting the details for 2019 really rolling along. So that's good, especially if we have some adjustments to take into account the Alteris report. We can make them, if it's things we're doing anyway, we could make them so they're compliant with the recommendations of the report. So that'll be very good. Let me see. So I appreciate all the work we've done on the budget this year, really looking forward. And I know you're doing a lot of strategic planning this summer, because we really want to look at 5-year plans, developing a vision, because some of these big things we want to do require many years of planning, and also requires input from the policy committee, the curriculum committee, facilities if we need to renovate or develop a new facility, such as if we had a career or life skill or arts type of facility we wanted to do, we would need to plan on the budgets for the teachers and curriculum, et cetera. So the only way to do that is to lay out that long-range plan, and then we can gradually get there in our budgeting. And that ties right in with our over the next year, if I'm going back onto the facilities committee, really want to start putting the 2022 capital plan together, because that'll, we still have a lot of things left over from the last building condition survey, and we'll have another one coming up. But it's the time when we want to, if we do, teachers, labs or things like that, upgrades, et cetera. So that strategic planning this summer will be very good.
Your facilities committees might need to be more than an hour now.
That usually takes more than an hour. And yeah, we can certainly look at that. The other thing is that,
Lots of guests.
you know, if we have a plan, we could also, I'm trying to figure out how to approach the city or how we can discuss with the city the needs of the district. You know, with all the development, other districts have, you know, said, hey, here's our plan, here's what we need, and there's been assessments on a per unit basis for new development. And now's the time, if we had a plan and then we could go to them and say, this is what we need, maybe somehow talk to them about that and get this fed into the special use permits, where we need help in the district to improve, and that can be that can help as well. Certainly for capital expenditures, not necessarily your ongoing annual expenses.
Mike, I'm going to bring to the facilities committee meeting, there was just a release of shared service grants. So that's, you know, opportunities for us to work with the city to save money together on things related to operational costs.
Okay.
So they were just released now, and also climate smart community stuff. So I'll see what I can find related to school districts.
Good, okay, thank you. Maybe we can just put that on the agenda if you can report out on that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have no comments for tonight. All right, we have no unfinished business, so moving on to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of this time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and the item will be voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Is there anything from the consent agenda that a board member would like to hold?
11.04 Delta and 11.07.
Any others? Hearing none, I need a motion to accept the consent agenda minus 11.04D and 11.07.
So moved.
Second was Kristen. Comments or questions?
I'd like to thank folks on 1108.
Duly noted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 8-0. I need a motion for 11.04D.
Motion to approve 11.04 Delta non-instructional personnel list.
Any second?
Second.
Anthony, comments or questions? Mike?
Delta, there's a appointment of a bus driver. So I know that we had a presentation from Mr. Mackey on bus drivers and how difficult it is. How many bus driver positions do we have open, and how's it going?
So we have between 8 and 10 positions that are open. So we have spares, and we've been using them a lot more. Some of them have other jobs. We have found a website, Indeed.com, which we use for our nurses. And we got a great pool of nurses. So we're using that now for bus drivers and bus monitors. So Mr. Mackey's in the process of going through those applications. The struggle we have now is that it's May. So by the time we hire them, we'll be June, and then we're off for the summer. So we may have to just make it do until the end of the year, but we're going to try to recruit people, you know, going forward, because there's not as many runs in the summer, so they wouldn't have work in the summer. So we're trying our best for now, you know, to cover everything. But this website has been great about getting people to us. So it's another avenue that we were advertising on Duchess Bosse's. We weren't getting anything. We were in the newspaper. We weren't getting anything. And then this came forward on the nurses, and so we decided to reach out for.
So if somebody in the district, you know, watching this meeting was interested, would you say where would they go to look?
They could contact either Mr. Mackey, and his information is on the website, or myself, and I would put it that way as well. Actually, Ron wrote a very creative paragraph to put out there. You know, are you retired? Are you want a little extra to do? You know, it was very innovative. You know, not your typical ad, both for monitors. So he did get a lot of applications. It's just a matter of weeding through them now. So it's good. It's encouraging anyway.
Good, thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 8-0. Any motion for 11.07?
So moved.
Kristen, second.
Second.
Meredith? Comments or questions?
My question is on the claims audit dated 4/25/2018. On page 2, it's check number 28355. 28355, it's to the city of Beacon. So for $22,000, I'm just wondering what this is for.
It's a multiple amount. The City of Beacon check is for, we have water sewer bill that we pay.
Okay.
But also it is the reimbursement for having police officers in our buildings for over several days in the high school and the middle school. So that check is for both.
Okay, so it includes like some of the walkthroughs we had.
It wasn't necessarily,
We had officers stationed in the school, so we didn't just have drive-bys. You know, we were pulling people. They were pulling people on a second shift to run either at Roundup or the high school, and we could give you the exact numbers, but it was close to a month off and on that we were having an officer stationed at one of the buildings.
Well, it was just I saw a large for that.
But it's
so
a
I
combination.
understand
Yeah, it's not just straight
not
data.
just, yeah, right. Most of it is the water sewer, but
Okay.
there's that part in there too.
And then on the claims audit that was dated 5/1/2018, on page 3, check number 28448, this is Computer Systems Integrators, and I know I've asked about them before.
Yes.
It's very large, it's $149,000, so is this the hardware that we got for the one-to-one?
No, actually, hardware for one-to-one is going through BOCES, COSER,
Good.
so that's through Dell.
Okay.
This is for a firewall. This is equipment, and so you're going to get the very bare minimum. I've learned a lot. Anthony Devon and I are learning, all of that. If you want a lot of details, I'll get it from CSI. But this was a purchase order that Tim had taken care of before. It's some of the upgrades on the firewall that we wanted to go through the smart bond, but the smart bond is definitely taking too long, and these are things that needed to get done. So it's a relook at the smart bond right now because we couldn't wait that long, and we had to put it through the general fund.
So if the smart bond ever comes through, can this be like journaled over to it or take any credit for?
We're investigating, looking at maybe spending it a different way. Part of it is the security upgrades. So if we're
Right.
doing the computer aspect of the general fund,
Right.
maybe it's taking back the application and actually looking at it from a different way. Because none of the money for the smart bond allocated to Beacon has been spent yet.
Yeah, you can't spend anything on the smart bond unless it's approved by the state, and it hasn't been approved by the state.
Right, so it's easy for them. They want to do their money, they just don't approve it.
And it's kind of stuck all over, it's kind of stalled.
Right.
These are things that, for a
We have to
firewall,
do.
we have to do.
Right.
We can't wait any longer.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, Henry, do you know if they're using a static IP address with 128 bit?
Oh, that's not fair.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 8-0. I need a motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual, and the board is expected not to take action after executive session.
Motion.
Anthony, Bill, second. Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 8-0.